Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and it's around your hormones, right? So, I titled this as Stop Blaming Your Hormones. And I want to dive into people will say things like, hey, my hormones are off, or I'm having hormonal issues, and not really understanding that it's mostly because of what they have been doing, right? So I'm going to dive into that today. But first, before I go into that topic, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Again, I appreciate everybody who listens, but rating and reviews are going to be the things that really push the growth of this podcast. So that would be super helpful. And again, just understand you would be helping out somebody else in the process as well too. Next, I have my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it, and the link to that is in the show notes. I also have my free nutrition periodization. I go over each nutrition phase, how to set it up, common mistakes, how to make adjustments, everything you need to know about each phase. And again, that link to that is in the show notes. Next, if you haven't given me a follow yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff, and that's where I'm most active on social media. And I'm also just a DM away if you have any questions or anything like that. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So what I want to chat about is stop blaming your hormones. And I want to, if you're somebody who feels like your hormones are off or there's something going on there, again, this is something that we'll want to look into. So your hormones are out of whack because of your current and past diet, training, whether that's too much training or too little, and lifestyle choices. It's not because of your genetics or because something is wrong with you. Yes, I understand that certain periods of time, and there's going to be certain situations where you may have a genetic issue, or again, certain periods of time. Let's take specifically the menopausal time frame, right? You're going to see hormones are going to just because of just natural aging, your hormones are going to be just, it's going to be altered, and this could play an impact on how you feel. Again, there's things that we can do, and there's some things that we can do to manage it, but understand that at the end of the day, it mostly comes down to what you have been doing. And again, people don't realize that, right? Our bodies are adaptation machines. So again, the body's just going to adapt to what you do to it. It's not trying to purposely hurt you in the process or anything like that. If anything, it's trying to help you survive. And really, I think at the end of the day, that's what our bodies are, again, what our hormones and everything is meant to do, right? It's to survive and to continue to evolve and adapt and continue to move our species on. So again, we have to think about it from that standpoint there. It's not, again, so survival and being able to continue to reproduce and continue our species, right? If we can come at it from that standpoint, it can make sense why certain things may happen, right? Now, the problem is in today's world, obviously things are a lot different now than what they have been years on end, right? Obviously, hundreds, probably 50, 60, 70 years ago, it wasn't a thing to be dieting for fat loss, right? It wasn't a thing that some people wanted to be shredded. It wasn't a thing that people wanted to have a ton of muscle. Again, maybe very small amounts, but if we go a little bit further out, 100, 200 years, this definitely was not the case. We go back thousands of years, it certainly was not the case, right? It literally was, hey, how do we survive? And then how do we make sure that we can continue to reproduce and ensure the species lives on? So again, that's what we need to understand. And that's where our body works from. So real quick, what I want to talk about from a hormone perspective is what are hormones, right? So they're chemical messengers produced by the glands in the endocrine system that regulate various physiological processes in the body, such as growth, metabolism, and mood. And they travel through the bloodstream to target organs and tissues and ensuring that different bodily functions operate smoothly and in harmony. So again, they're just messengers. They're going to get the signal from the brain in terms of what's going on. There's other things that the brain can recognize. And then from there, those chemical messengers will tell the cells what they, and organs and tissues and everything, what they need to do with what's going on. Some hormones that we need to worry about from a body composition standpoint would be like insulin, right? So insulin's going to play a role in with glucose, regulating blood sugar. That's what insulin will be there. We have testosterone, right? That's an anabolic steroid hormone. It promotes muscle growth and strength. So testosterone is a big one. Estrogen, the primary female sex hormone. There is some present in men. And so estrogen's a big one. Cortisol, it's a stress hormone. It helps control metabolism and an immune response. Thyroid hormones, it helps regulate metabolism, energy production, and protein synthesis. So thyroid hormones will be ones we'll talk about. Leptin, it regulates energy balance by inhibiting hunger. So it gives you it recognizes how much body fat we have. And if that starts to get too low, that's where leptin can play a role. And we have ghrelin. This is the appetite hormone. So again, this is one that stimulates appetite. There's that. And then progesterone, right? That's another sex hormone, and it's involved in the menstrual cycle, pregnancy as well too. These are the main hormones at play and whatnot. I think from an estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone standpoint, those are going to be women. They want optimal ratios of those. Testosterone's obviously going to be the main one for men there with that. And then everybody obviously has cortisol, thyroid hormones, ghrelin, leptin, and insulin, right? So those are the main ones. Okay. There with that. If you, again, we need to understand that, okay, so this is where I want to take this next is If you think there's something wrong with you or your hormones, but you still don't weight train 2 to 3 times per week, get 6 to 10K steps per day, sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, improve your stress management, eat a moderate to high quality diet, reduce alcohol intake, and take time away from trying to lose body fat, you're wasting your time. You need to start here first, right? I think a lot of times people think there's something wrong with them, but then they're not doing most of these things on the list. And it's my hormones are messed up. It's because of what you're doing to your body. Again, your body's just it's an adaptation machine, and it's just responding to the things that you are doing to it. And again, if something is off, your body is going to respond in a way that maybe you don't think is helpful. For example, high stress levels can lead to higher cortisol. Again, that's a natural body response. We want that. But the issue comes when that cortisol is super high over time. Then the body needs to make some adjustments there. Same thing with insulin, right? Again, insulin spikes are good. We want that. We need that to help regulate blood sugar. But the issue becomes when it's high for extended periods of time. That's where the body will start to adapt. And again, you'll start to see insulin resistance, right? At that point. So again, these are just basic bodily functions here that, again, it runs smoothly. But once you do certain things for extended periods of time, the body will start to adapt to that, whether that's a positive or a negative, right? And it can adapt both ways. Just because you have, say, insulin resistance for a period of time, it's not a death sentence. You're able to work on that with healthy habits. But if it's just, hey, this is what I have, this is my issue, and I can't do anything about it, then that's going to be something that was going to hold you back, right? Again, you have options. Now, obviously, I think for something like insulin resistance, the longer you do it, the worse it is, the harder it's going to be. So I think most people listening to this podcast probably aren't in that situation, but there are some things from whether it's low testosterone or, again, from a female perspective, your sexual hormones are out of whack, right? Whether estrogen's high relative to progesterone or vice versa, or any of those three, right? Either way, it's usually something that you are doing, and there's something that can be fixed and worked on before it's, hey, it's because of my hormones. Because I think I've had multiple clients in the past, and I hear this all the time, where it's just because of my hormones and that's what it is. But then again, there's things that could be off from a day-to-day standpoint, right? So where I want to go here with this is just some common things that can alter your hormones that maybe people don't understand, right? Because I think, again, if somebody's not exercising, they're eating a very poor quality diet, they drink a ton of alcohol. It's okay. We know the things that can be done here. But where I think you see a lot of issues crop up is when people are relatively healthy, or they do things that they feel like they should, right? They're exercising, they're training hard, but then it's like when their hormones can get out of balance from that standpoint, it's like, what's going on here, right? Why is this happening? And so I want to just go over some common things that can alter your hormones. So the first is too much high intensity training with poor recovery. Okay. So with that, when we're just continuing to push our training here and we're not getting that adequate amount of recovery, can lead to elevated cortisol levels. Again, you're just under recovered. Overtraining can also lower testosterone, which is going to have an impact on muscle mass and strength. And then also this can lead to overtraining with not enough recovery, or again, maybe you're combining this with low calorie amounts. You're not getting the right amount of micronutrients. There's also, because of the high stress on the body, your gut health could be off, which could lead to not absorbing or getting all the micronutrients you need at that point. And then that's going to lead to other issues down the line as well too, right? The first one here is too much high intensity training with poor recovery. That's one that, again, people are like, I'm working out, I'm pushing it. What's going on here? I think my hormones are messed up. It's because you're not focused on things outside of the gym. You're just really pushing your training. You're not fueling yourself enough. So this is a really common one that I see in this situation. This could also be somebody who maybe they do a ton of cardio, right? And again, same type of thing here. It doesn't necessarily need to be high intensity training. It can just be high amounts of training with poor nutrition, not enough fuel, poor sleep, etc. So again, I think the two biggest things would be its impact on cortisol and its impact on testosterone. There with that. Next, we have fat loss dieting for too long and too often. This is one that can stimulate ghrelin if you're just constantly restricting your nutrition. So you're going to be hungry, right? It's also going to impact leptin as well too, right? It's going to lower leptin, which can increase hunger, and this could you have higher hunger, lower satiety. This is going to lead to potential for weight regain over time. There with that. This is also going to have an impact on your thyroid hormones as well too. So we know that when your calories are low, you're in that energy deficit. This can reduce thyroid hormone production, which can slow down metabolism. It will slow down your gut health as well too. So that can also slow down as well. So we can see how this can have an impact if we're just always fat loss dieting. Again, another big issue with always fat loss dieting is obviously the under recovery aspect of it. Again, and then you're just not fueling yourself enough. So there's a higher risk of micronutrient deficiencies here with this. So again, something that we want to look out for here. And again, same thing, extreme weight loss protocols. It's going to be the same thing here with this. Again, lower thyroid, all that good stuff that I just talked about. And again, both of these can have an impact on estrogen and progesterone, right? If we're constantly in this low caloric state, always trying to fat loss diet, high intensity training, again, this can impact estrogen and progesterone, and that can mess up your sex hormones, which can cause you to feel all sorts of ways, right? Water retention, poor mood, low energy, all these things that I've talked about so far here with everything. And again, another common one would be micronutrient deficiency. So again, a lot of these tie into each other, right? How are we going to see micronutrient deficiencies? One could be you're restricting your caloric intake. Therefore, again, you have a higher risk of micronutrient deficiencies because you just don't have as much food coming in. Poor diet quality. Again, if it's mostly like processed food, you're going to be missing out on a lot of essential vitamins and minerals. High exercise with low recovery, not enough fuel. Again, you're going to burn through those micronutrients a little bit more. Stress can also cause you to burn through your micronutrients a little bit as well too. So there's that. And then these micronutrient deficiencies could potentially, for example, lead to impact on thyroid hormones, right? If we have a deficiency in like iodine or selenium, this can impair thyroid function, right? So these are all things where micronutrient deficiencies can also lead to some hormonal issues down the line as well too. One thing I wanted to mention, I didn't say here on this, but very low or very high body fat levels, right? So if you're super lean, this is going to impact your sex hormones. Again, for women, it's going to impact the sex hormones there, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. For men, typically when you're at really low body fat levels, you also see testosterone lower. But on the flip side, very high body fat levels will also impact your hormones as well too, right? So we want to have that sweet spot there of body fat. This kind of comes back to making sure that you don't fat loss diet for too long, right? Because this you can run into then as you get super lean and you have some issues there. Now, what I will say on this is that's not most people. Most people aren't too lean. It's again, mostly the things that I've mentioned so far that are going to play a bigger role there with that. Poor sleep is going to impact your hormones, right? It can have an impact on ghrelin and leptin. It increases ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and it decreases leptin, the satiety hormone. So it leads to an increased appetite and potential weight gain. Again, poor sleep can alter your sex hormones, especially testosterone, causing from a female perspective, them to be out of balance there with that. High stress load with poor stress management techniques. So high stress load being you just have a lot of stress, again, training stress, diet stress, whatever it may be, but you also have poor stress management techniques. This can have an impact on cortisol, can lead to higher cortisol over time. This can lead to increased fat storage, especially in the abdominal area. And it's not going to put us in a great spot to build muscle. And it may even get you in the point to where you could see some muscle breakdown as well too. It can also impact insulin, right? High cortisol levels can lead to insulin resistance and higher blood sugar levels as well too, right? So again, if we have this high stress load, these are going to impact your hormones as well too there. And then we know lack of exercise and movement. Again, I think most people listen isn't an issue, but that definitely is something where, again, you'll hear people talk about my hormones are messed up or I have this going on. I need to go on this medication, and then it's they don't exercise, they don't move. It makes sense there with that. Again, poor diet quality. So this kind of comes back to micronutrient deficiencies. But again, the main thing is the micronutrient deficiencies there with the poor diet quality. Excess alcohol consumption. Again, this is going to have an impact on testosterone, on cortisol. And so again, this is something that we want to be careful with. It's also going to, it can mess with your gut health as well too, which will lead to issues like micronutrient deficiencies and whatnot, right? Your gut health and digestion issues, right? Again, this is going to be something that can impact your hormones as well too, right? If our gut health is off, again, we're probably not getting all the micronutrients we need there with that. And we might not be getting we might not be absorbing as much food or the calories that we need to look and feel our best there with that. Again, poor hydration is another one that can impact hormone levels, right? Can impact cortisol, can impact thyroid function. So again, we want to make sure that we're staying hydrated. Medications can also impact hormones, right? If you're taking antidepressants, that can be one. Birth control, right? That's obviously going to impact your hormone levels as well too. So really the main thing here with this is I wanted to just make you aware if you're somebody who feels like your hormones are messed up. You really need to look into some of these things that I talked about, because again, it's probably what you're doing that is the issue, right? And again, like some of these things you'd think it would be healthy, right? Oh, hey, you're eating a low calorie diet, you're exercising a ton. Those are things that you think you should be doing, but they can lead to some issues down the line. So I wanted to just bring that up to bring awareness. What are some things that we can do here to try to really get everything in balance? Everything I talked about, right? Again, the weight training, we want to make sure we weight train 2 to 3 times a week. Let's make sure we stay fairly active. Let's make sure we sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. We want to find better ways to manage our stress. We want to eat a moderate to high quality diet. We want want to obviously reduce our alcohol intake and just don't always try to be losing body fat and getting to healthy body weights, right? So whether that's if your body fat levels are too high, we want to drop it down. If they're too low, we want to bring them up into a better range there with that. So hopefully that gave you some insight into if you're blaming your hormones, I can do something about this. And that's really what I want this to be about is you are able to do things. Again, I think that a lot of times, maybe if you're somebody you feel like you're doing all these things, but then it sleeps off, or you're always fat loss dieting, or you're exercising too much. There's probably at least one or two of these things that you can at least fix and improve in some way here. So again, that's really what I want to do here is bring awareness to this and understand that you do have control in this before you need to take further action. Now, if you do these things and you're still having issues, then hey, then you do probably need to look into it a little bit more there with that. But again, I think people jump the gun and think that there's something wrong with them and they can use that as a cop out when not everything is in place. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, if you have any insights or you need to follow up with any of these, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. Again, if you have questions about how to set up your training, what your macros need to be, what phase of nutrition you need to be in, then my free 30-minute strategy call is for you. We go over what your goals are. We get you on a game plan moving forward. If you're interested in that, the link is in the show notes. That's it for this episode, and I will chat with you next time.